I had no business being a child. The playground and its mewling habitués were not for me. From the time I was 5 years old, growing up in this little old bumfuck town, Beaumont, Texas, all I wanted, my idea of heaven, was to be at a cocktail party with a martini in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and my head thrown back in laughter. Ha! Everything outside of that was filler. Now, my mother, Mama Jean, she had other ideas. If only I could shrink you back to age 5. That was the perfect age. She'd been saying this to me since I was 6. Now, she was like a movie star to me when I was a kid. She had a raven mane of hair done once a week to a tease, and her Rubenesque figure, she was Beaumont's answer to Elizabeth Taylor. And she never had a thought she didn't speak. She was every inch the star, self-made, image-obsessed, demanding with the patience of a firecracker, and almost always in close-up. But she made a career out of loving me, and her all-consuming love cloaked me like a cashmere blanket in August. It was the crack cocaine of mother love. So it didn't sit well with her when I started growing up and started doing adult things like drinking alcohol and having sex with men. And after my freshman year at college, and that's when I came out to her, so she was really on edge that summer. And after that first year of freedom away from her, splashing joyously in the waters of boys, booze, and drugs with impunity, it was culture shock being back under her roof for the summer. I mean, to her, anyone who had more than 2 drinks was an alcoholic. Drugs were criminal. And sex, I can still see her reflection in the makeup mirror as she dispensed her motherly wisdom with a flick of a mascara wand. Remember, alcoholics can't count. And a stiff dick knows no conscience. But I managed to have some fun that summer with a local guy. During the day, he taught ballet at Miss Dolly's School of Dance. In the evenings, he plowed me over that ballet bar, teaching me moves Miss Dolly never dreamed of teaching. Yeah. So after one of those ballet bar nights, I stumbled in drunk and wobbly through the back kitchen door. And there she was, waiting. I could make out the outline of Mama Jean in the shadows. Her bubble of hair was a perfect circle, sitting atop the floor-length maroon velour zip-up robe, which was anchored by gold-slippered feet. Her hands were on her hips. Ready or not, here comes Mama. Where in the hell have you been? I was out with a friend. I know, and I can see you're drunk again. Jamie, I've told you to watch the drinking. Mama Jean had been watching my drinking ever since she caught me in a blackout in high school. How dare you keep me up at night when I've got work in the morning, work that pays for that car you drive so you can run the streets with no regard for me. And what friend were you out with? Carlos Fitzpatrick de Navarro. That was the dancer's name. Who the hell is Carlos Fitz-a-poo-poo? He teaches ballet at Miss Dolly's. She knew Miss Dolly, so I threw her that nugget to give him a tutu of respectability. It didn't work. So then I decided to impress her. Well, you know, he used to dance with the New York City Ballet. New York? Have you heard of AIDS? Have you heard of safe sex? There's only 2 kinds of sex, oral and anal. She forgot vaginal. But that was her problem. Whoosh! She disappeared, leaving me standing there speechless. And just when I thought I was safe, she returned for a final showdown. She pointed a perfectly sculpted red fingernail at me and glared. You don't know what love is. I opened my mouth, but stopped short of saying, a stiff dick knows no conscience, right? Instead, I shut up, and I let her have the last word as she disappeared And then I stood there staring at the empty shadow she left behind in my fog of booze and sex and youth, wondering. I thought that her definition of love meant doing what she wanted me to do, being her perfect little red-headed Jamie doll. But maybe I was wrong. Well, we got past that moment, and after I graduated from college, I moved to New York City to lead my sissy fabulous life. And believe me, I got my dream come true. I can't tell you how many cocktail parties I had a martini in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and my head thrown back in laughter. But after martini after martini after martini, and as the years progressed, there weren't so many parties, just a lot of booze and a few drugs too. And after a while, the fabulous sunk into depression. When you drink that much booze, it sinks you into a Grand Canyon of depression. And I bottomed out on a suicide attempt. And when I came to in the emergency room to the news that Mama Jean was on a plane from Beaumont, Texas, I panicked. "Stop her," I said. Too late. She was already in flight. So I spent a week in detox in the hospital. And when I got home, she was waiting for me. And I was wrong when I lay in fear of her reaction. She didn't yell, "I told you so, God damn it!" Instead, she just grabbed me and hugged me for dear life. Her Jamie doll back in her arms. "Oh, I'm so happy to see you alive. God, you scared me." But then she regained her dexterity when a psychiatrist friend came over and tried to clinically and gingerly explain the next steps for treating my alcoholism. "Cut to the chase, doctor. Are we going to have to lock him up?" The answer was yes. Out came her checkbook. Then she pointed a red fingernail at me. "Your drinking days are over. And by the way, suicide is a mortal sin. So it's a damn good thing you didn't succeed. Otherwise, you couldn't spend eternity in heaven with me." So off I went to rehab on a sober journey funded by Mama Jean. Now, a couple of years later, she started slipping away. Everything that she had been expert at started to deteriorate. And when she went haywire, hit bottom, if you will, and she had to be hospitalized. Her mind had been hijacked by Lewy body dementia. Think Alzheimer's, only weirder and worse. I did what she'd done for me, and I hopped on a plane and I flew down to Texas to be by her side. And during that first visit in the hospital, I'm not even sure if she knew me. At one point, she looked up at me and said, "With your pretty red hair, you almost remind me of..." And then she just trailed off. Everything she said that day lacked the one thing she'd never lacked: conviction. I turned away from her, my mind trying to erase what I had just seen: a mad woman in my mother's body wearing a worn nightgown, no makeup, and a crushed bouffant. And then she grabbed my arm in a vice grip. I turned around and she was pointing a red fingernail at me and glaring like that time she said, "You don't know what love is. You've been drinking." "No, I haven't." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." I hadn't. But unbeknownst to her, my drinking days weren't completely over. I had been relapsing since rehab. And even though at that moment I was sober, 7 months sober, I was struggling to finally get a year. But how could she know that? "You better not be lying. Remember, Mama, that's all behind us. You took care of that. I have you to thank." And I thought to myself, who would blame me if I drank over my mother losing her mind? But there was another way to look at it. God damn it! If you can't stay sober for yourself, do it for her. I turned and looked her in the eye. "You don't have to worry anymore." "Okay, but promise me." "Promise." "I promise." Then I saw her the way I remembered her best. Dressed for a party, hair perfectly coiffed, nails done, face camera ready. It was the last time she was Mama Jean. 5 months later, she died. And I finally got a year sober. I've been sober ever since. Thank you. So she died knowing that I was sober with her help, but never knowing that she saved me one last time. Thank you.